Cal Berkeley took out the main university race in the United States in 8s. That's the IRAs. They won that 8s race, when perhaps people thought maybe it was going to be Yale, maybe it was going to be Washington, both of whom we saw competing here last year in the ladies' challenge. But in fact, it wasn't. It was Cal Berkeley, and 4 of that crew have gone for it in the visitors, and we see them here sitting in this 4 in front of us.
Yeah, University of California are the current holders of the visitors, and Oxford Brookes haven't won this event for 4 years, so let's see who can progress through to the final in this round.
So that's a distinctive voice of Richard Phelps talking to the crews. Alex Partridge in the bow seat of that Oxford Brookes and Proteus crew will be the last one to put his hand down. He's a wily racer. He's ready.
Attention! Go!
The umpire's ready and the crews are away. Very nice and cleanly. These boats get up to speed pretty quickly. They can also change directions quite quickly, so there's a steering job to do for both the bowmen to keep their boats on track. As we see Cal Berkeley being pushed by the stream coming off the island. Richard Phelps had to go for that flag quite early. Quite understandable too, and he's going to want to see a response from Cal Berkeley to steer back towards their station.
Cal Berkeley, current national champions. Oh my goodness, that was so...
They're going to have to stop.
I think, yeah.
We're going to have a stop here. Richard Phelps has waved that red flag. I don't know what happened there. They looked like they were doing okay, looked like they were trying to make corrections, then suddenly, boom, they were in together on each other.
I think, yeah, it was quite interesting. One crew comes over, and you often expect on the left-hand side, Oxford Brookes to kind of feel pushed, but they didn't hold their line. I think it's a very experienced Oxford Brookes crew, and they didn't feel pushed over. They held their line. And Cal Berkeley did come into them.
So it'll be interesting to see what Richard Phelps does with this one now. He's got options. He could disqualify someone. I'd be surprised if he does that quite so early in the race in coxless fours, which are hard to steer. He's having a word. He's deferring to Angus Robertson, that is back there, a senior man. And that looks like Peter Thomas as well at the back of the boat, to check. Let's have a listen.
Tense moments.
So he has made the decision, as he can do, to ask the crews to turn off the course and to return to the stake boats. They've got a choice whether they're going to row straight back up the course. I think they can't back it. It's far too far to back it. So they could spin on the spot. Cal Berkeley crew are just asking what is the best thing to do. If it was me, I'd spin the boat. I'd spin the boat in the lane. I'd be late. I'd let the others go first. I'd spin the boat in the lane slowly, and then I'd let myself row calmly back up to the start and try to reset. Hit the reset button. Because
you've done, I mean, the thing is, you've done the first 45 seconds of the race, you've done the hardest lactic acid building bit, so you're going to have that in your legs, and now actually, now you see you're sitting there, and it's just, the lactic acid's just sitting there, you kind of want to get rid of that. But there'll be, that's what you practice for, these rows are trained, so that will be gradually dissipating now.
Any rowers would know you wouldn't do a 1 minute piece flat out and then stop and sit there.
No.
That's the last thing you do. And yet they haven't done it.
Already their legs will be hurting. Still. Already their legs will be hurting, but they didn't have much choice. They had to wait. So here we see the kind of disadvantage of the advantage of not having a cox.
Yes.
So coxless fours, I mean, it was quite an innovation for boats to be coxless at all. Of course, all rowing boats did have coxes, and I think it was 1867, the Paris Regatta, the first US crew entered a coxed race because they were all coxed, and they had a steering contraption instead of a cox, and they won everything at this Paris Regatta. And people came back with ideas, including W.B. Woodgate of Brasenose College, Oxford, and he secretly invented a steering contraption for his four at Oxford. In the following year, 1868, they entered the coxed fours event at Henley, and very famous story, off the start, their cox jumped out of the boat. The steering contraption took over, and they won. They were then very quickly disqualified. But the next year, the stewards kind of relented and went, yeah, okay, this looks like a good idea.
So as we see the crews backing down towards the start, we're going to have a rerun. It'd be nice to have a little replay and see just what happened when the boats came together.
Go!
So here we see it the whole way from the start. This is the rerun, so don't be surprised if you see them crashing into each other. It's not that they've done the same thing twice. So it looked to me like Cal Berkeley, they went quite straight, but they just get the push that comes from the island because the stream is flowing. And you never want to crash into the island, so they let the boat drift. Richard Phelps immediately goes to the flag. That's perfectly reasonable. Try and correct them, try and get them back on track. Did they respond? It's impossible to tell because we switched to this angle. And then suddenly, we're going to be into a clash.
I don't think they did really respond. I think it's so tricky to halt and change, and
And they pile up so much, there's no way they can untangle themselves from there.
I suspect they must have responded a bit, otherwise they would have been in more danger of disqualification.
Yeah.
Richard must have seen them trying to move, and it's pretty tough.
I think it tends to be that because it was all one incident almost. It wasn't like
Yeah.
they came back a few times, they had a nibble, they corrected, they didn't. It felt like all one event. So I think Richard Phelps feels lenient that we're here to see racing. And I think we've seen worse collisions further down the track where the umpires have had to intervene more.
Dr. Brookes Proteus crew on the left-hand side of the picture. Perhaps they'll be reaping the advantages now, having a very experienced bowman. Alex Partridge has been a lot of situations. He's probably talking to them right now, helping them get their heads back.
And that's it. It's a mental thing now, isn't it? To get the focus back, to go out now and be ready to do the best Henley race you've ever done.
Didn't both these crews come through? Quite interesting races on the way through, I think.
Equipment has not been damaged by that clash.
That is certainly the Oxford Brookes and Proteus crew yesterday were a long way behind, 3 lengths behind, and they came roaring back in the final stages, were impeded and managed to go through actually by disqualification of the other crew.
So they're having an adventure. I didn't see that race, but I remember hearing that it was quite there was things going on, so they're having an interesting route through.
But I see that you are both.
So now we're ready for the second run at the visitors semi-final between Oxford Brookes and Proteus up against the University of Cal Berkeley. So the crews have already clashed once. Richard Phelps talking them through it. Alex Partridge's hand is up. It's the last to go down, as I would expect. It's back up again. He's making sure his boat is more ready than the other boat. He's not going to like this. Cal Berkeley, two-man's got his hand up.
Attention! Go!
So this time we're seeing quite clean-looking starts. If anything, Cal Berkeley have got the boat pointing slightly towards the island. I think that's great.
Absolutely sure, aren't they?
I think that's great. I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You can get a little bit of shelter even from the wind and possibly from the stream by getting tucked up beside the island. Great steering there.
They've learnt their lesson. So again, Cal Berkeley went off higher and faster, 47.48. So it's really now like they've done a minute piece, they've gone back up, and they're doing their second minute piece off the start. We'll see who gets the advantage coming down the island. It does look like Cal Berkeley. They've had a faster, higher start.
Cal Berkeley have made a good start, haven't they? We can just see them moving out towards a better canvas, and that is really the start. This is, like you say, the anaerobic system. The lactic acid is piling up, and then the crews up here after about a minute switch from that anaerobic system to the aerobic system as they look to try and find a sustainable rhythm. And I think both crews are doing that very nicely, very strongly, and this one still looks very tight to me.
Wow, we are going to have another race here. So Cal Berkeley went off in the 40s. They haven't really settled. They're kind of 38, 39, looking across. You can see the bowman looking across there. They've done their sprint start. They've put everything in they had, and it hasn't really taken them ahead. And now, the Brookes Proteus crew able to start moving through. They look like they've got a slightly longer rhythm.
It looks to me like there's a really strong rhythm coming from that Proteus Oxford Brookes crew on the far side, where they're just able to really get a hold. See the arms really staying long and straight, and pushing the backs through, and then finishing it off with the arms with that extra length that they're getting. I think Alex Partridge is a really good exponent of this in the bow seat. You can see his back going right through, getting the length and power.
They're eating into this quite quickly, this Oxford Brookes Proteus composite. After that re-row from the start.
You see Richard Phelps is thinking about the flag. He's twitching with the flag. I think the two crews have both come together here.
Yeah, they have.
Is he going to ask them to go apart? No, he just gave a small signal. It was almost just like a little steer, just the beginning of a warning to tell Oxford Brookes and Proteus to get themselves back towards their station. Very nicely done by the umpire and the steersman in the bow seat of that Oxford Brookes and Proteus crew.
Having had the trouble earlier, they're really reactive now, and they've certainly got their attention on the steering. We saw women's 8 race earlier, which, you know, you leave the kind of responsibility for the steering to your cox, who is not looking at the umpire, and it takes quite long to respond, but they're certainly paying attention while they're still racing it out here. So it's Brookes, their rate up, 36 still, settling ahead. Boats still quite close together.
The boats are very close
together.
Richard
hard.
Phelps
He's working hard, Richard.
He's having to steer back. The Cal Berkeley crew, they are coming out of their water. They don't really want to do that.
Nearly on for another clash now.
He's trying to move both crews. They're in no man's land here. I don't think it's anyone's fault if they clash. They both managed to respond, because those blades look to me pretty much like they're right in the middle of the course. No one was in the wrong. Richard Phelps was looking to steer both crews apart. They're coming down through Forley. That's the halfway marker of the course, and it's still pretty tight.
And I think it does seem to be affecting the rhythm of the Cal Berkeley crew a little bit more. You know, they're behind, they're trying to push, and each time they push, they kind of move over a little bit and have to because now they've got back straight and level, and now they're starting to eat into it again.
They are looking to come back, aren't they?
But every time they kind of, now they're moving back into
Oxford Brookes and Proteus, I think, have let themselves drift in and out of their station. They're back on it now, and they're coming back. And like you say so well, Alison, that when Cal Berkeley get themselves into a rhythm, they come back and they move.
But then their steering lets them down, so let's hope now they've gone through. They've upped their rating, actually. Once they got themselves straight and they could really relax, they got their rate up to 36, 37, and that's enabled them to come through.
This Cal Berkeley crew, they've rowed together all year, so established in the 8 that won the IRAs. They've been able to move team members around from seat to seat to try and get things right, to try and get this combination right here for Henley Royal Regatta. Very different for the crew from Proteus and Oxford Brookes. Two pairs who came together only a few weeks ago, racing on the Holland as two pairs. They made a decision. Shall we do Henley? Yeah, come on, let's do Henley. Let's do the visitors. Let's get in a Coxless 4 together. So maybe that lack of togetherness, that lack of cohesion could just be starting to pay through here in the middle of the race.
I wonder, so who is steering these boats? Do you have it marked?
It's the bowmen.
It's the bowmen, yeah, which is really tricky. So it's on a river. For training, it's easiest to have the bow and the steering in the bow, because you'll be looking round and you don't want to crash. But on a straight course, it's more usual, and it's easier to have the steering at stroke, because you can look straight down the course.
Yeah, so it's Nicky Van Spring in the bow seat of the Cal Berkeley crew, and it's Alex Partridge in the bow seat of the Oxford Brookes Proteus crew.
Yeah, so they've perhaps given the steering to the more experienced members of the crew. Van Spring is the returner. He was in the Cal Berkeley crew that won at Henley last year, so he's been on this course, he knows it, and they probably decided, you know, that he's the best person to steer. But it's just really tricky from bow, because you're having to try and line up with the
Well, you've got
booms.
3 people in the way, haven't
Yeah.
you? You've got 3 people in the way. You're looking for a straight line. You look to try and see those puddles behind, looking symmetrical, looking even, the course to look even, and you can say, right, that's my steering line when you're in the stroke seat.
But now,
But from the bow seat, it's much harder. But we can see the crew from Proteus and Oxford Brookes have got themselves tugged right over towards the inside Berkshire station as hard as they can. And Cal Berkeley now out in the middle. Richard Phelps still having to go for their flag, looking to steer Cal Berkeley back. They don't want to do that. They go fastest when they go in a straight line, not when they keep twitching on the rudder.
But they've really jacked it up now. They're 38, 39. They've had all sorts going on. They had doubles. They've had to start twice. They've had those 2 1-minute pieces off the start. But they still managed to get their rate up to 38, 39 coming into the finish. It's up to 39.40 now, putting in a real sprint finish. Wow, they've demolished Oxford Proteus in the last 300 metres there.
They really have, haven't they? Up in front of their grandstands. The real togetherness, the quality of this Cal Berkeley crew's come through. Very strong men. Understand they 8 had an average ergo score of 5.53. See that power coming through now from the 4. They've delivered here at Henley. It's a semi-final win for the men from Cal Berkeley over the men from Proteus and Oxford Brookes. And confirmation there in the visitors, Cal Berkeley beating Oxford Brookes and Proteus. Just a moment as the crews are now going to just rest up. Richard Phelps shows the white flag. He had a lot to do with the white flag. It would only be if he raised the red flag that anything might change. See the coaches sitting there. Everyone's happy. They've just worked very, very hard. Not happy with the result. Happy it's a fair race.